All right, let's see. I think let's see. Yeah. We are live. All right. All right, everyone. Welcome to episode 843 of the Black Brain Trust. This is Black Cultural Intelligence, the Black Intelligentsia, and the Black Business Class. This is the second part of a series um, that Rael is putting together that I co-host with him. And he will be joining us shortly. Um, Probably kind of surprising you guys a little bit. Oh wait, you know what? I always do this shit. Hold on one second, man. Welcome everyone. Boom. We got to exchange pleasantries. So we got to do that right there. And then what we also need to do is press 203 if the sound and music is okie dokie. If you guys can also do that, if the sound is good, hit me with a 203. That lets me know everything's coolio. And while we wait for Rael to join us, all right, Roger got that. Roger that. Haha. What's going on, my fellow brother of distinction? And for those of y'all who don't know, let me real quick, man, before we jump off into this, I want to put this on the wood and on the record. I got to salute my guy, Roger Spice here. Roger, I don't know if you know this, dude. My channel got taken down, dog. uh, I, I messed around, too many liberties with the visuals I was using, not the music, the visuals. So yeah, my stuff got knocked. But I want to salute Roger Spice. He coined a term, and I think it's fitting that we put it on the wood and we all kind of understand this as a concept. Um, you'll see us refer to each other as like a brother of distinction, fellow man of distinction. But the core term is man of distinction, and that was coined by Roger Spice. So I want this on the wood, right? Hashtag man of distinction, hashtag men of distinction, hashtag brothers of distinction. That's your boy Roger Spice right there. So while it's fresh in my mind, let me put that on the wood, man, and salute the brother because it is a concept. It's a modality. It really does kind of break down how we want to approach self development. Being somebody of distinction, and it's the perfect descriptive. You know, so um, you know, once again, big up to Roger Spice. For those of y'all that don't know, let me throw it in the chat real quick as we wait for Rael to pull up. There he is, right there. Go.
It was good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you go, man. You good?
Okay. Okay.
I'm just doing some exchanging some pleasantries here before we get started.
All right.
But to go back, you got it, bro. You got it. Um, to go back to what I'm kind of opening with and what this series of live streams is going to be about. Um, you know, there's a mirrored effect with regards to what we have today, right? When we have like these um, sort of like these philosophical conversations that go back and forth, right? Those, let's just say, from academia and what have you, and then those of of the sort of like the global, or let's just say industrial or business class, right? And when we break down the history of it, this is actually a conversation that goes back to the turn of the 20th century. Yeah, Ryle.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh no, I was saying, I was just, do you agree with that statement?
Oh yeah, yeah, most definitely,
Yeah. Um,
absolutely.
and this is the reason why for this series of live streams, we're using the image of Carter G. Woodson, because he breaks down a lot of the schisms between what was going on with the various classes of black folks at that time. And it's very, very, very interesting what it is that, Ryle has hit me to through his research. So with that, man, hey, I'm gonna hand it on over to Ryle. Don 007, what's good with you, man? Welcome.
Um, Peace, everybody.
Mm, I need to pull those slides up, huh?
Yeah,
Hold on.
you,
Okay,
you don't necessarily have to. I made a little changes to
you
them,
got
but
it. Okay, all
yeah,
right. Well, let's
yeah,
just let's just rock with it. Go ahead.
that is right.
All right.
Um, we are really digging in the crates, um, trying to unearth much of the past, a vital missing piece or suppressed piece of the past that really is missing from our collective psyche as a group of people. This um, missing piece of our heritage um, has contributed to um, a low self esteem, a lack of confidence and ability in many of the people in our group. And what we're finding out is we have had a historical clash that needs to be hashed out once and for all, because this clash has really um, undermined the true genius and talents that our people possess historically and still do possess, if they actually figure out how to tap into it. So, what we want to do is try to bring some of this information to the fore. So, maybe this can be the start of unearthing this particular genius that we possess. Um, it's going to be a little contentious. We just want to warn y'all. Um,
To say the
not
least.
not not contentious for beef purposes, but um, we're gonna be covering some things that is just gonna ruffle some feathers. It's just the nature of the beast. Uh, you know, we can take it. We can handle it. Um, we have to, um, as we proceed with this particular stream, we want y'all to listen to this stream in the context of with the Booker T. Washington stream that we series that we did in the backdrop as well, because it's connected. Um, what we wanted to do um, is show with that particular series is the genius and the contributions of a Booker T. Washington and what his place in our history as a group is, and to um, dispel a lot of the negative myths about him that really undermine his strength uh, as a innovator in uh, creating Tuskegee and the National Negro Business League and many other endeavors that he uh, participated in regarding Black people and Black business development around in the turn of the 20th century, late 1800s and early parts of the 20th century. So, um, I'm gonna get to it. Um, It may be of no importance to the race to be able to boast today of many times as many educated members as it had in 1865. If they are of the wrong kind, the increase in numbers will be a disadvantage rather than an advantage. The only question which concerns us here is whether these educated persons are actually equipped to face the ordeal before them or unconsciously contribute to their own undoing by perpetuating the regime of the oppressor. This is Carter G. Woodson from The Miseducation of the Negro. Carter G. Woodson's words, published 90 years ago, 1933, delivers somewhat of a scathing critique of black intellectualism regarding the sobering reality of the black condition during this period. We must keep in mind that Woodson presents this critique 6 years after Marcus Garvey's deportation from America, after his sentence was commuted, and 18 years after the death of Booker T. Washington, a stalwart in black business development as well as educational development in black America in the aftermath of the failures of Reconstruction. The audience must remember the loss of these two powerful men in black America, albeit Garvey was Jamaican, changed the trajectory of black life because of the platforms they possessed to speak to black people, with Washington's Tuskegee Institute and the National Negro Business League and Garvey's Universal Negro Improvement Association. The death of Washington and the deportation of Garvey from America created a vacuum of power that black academics were eager to fill, and not in a good way we can see for ourselves now. What's interesting is that within a short time, an educator of Woodson's stature was already questioning the education black intellectuals were receiving, the same education academics such as Du Bois and E. Franklin Frazier received, those who did not have a favorable view to the likes of Washington and Garvey. Harold Cruse, in his work, The Crisis of the Negro Intellectual from His Origins to the Present, delivers an insightful assessment regarding the masses of blacks and their relationship with groups like the NAACP, with the following, which illuminates this historical schism when he writes: I have attempted to define what a considerable body of Negroes have thought and expressed on a less analytic and articulate level. I do not claim to represent the thinking of all the people in America who are called Negroes. For Negroes are certainly divided into classes, a fact white liberals and radicals often overlook when they speak of the Negro. There is, however, a broad strain of Negro social opinion in America that is strikingly cogent and cuts through class lines. This social outlook cannot be and never has been encompassed by the program of an organization such as the NAACP, whose implied definition of racial integration offers no answers to the questions that agitate the collective minds of those Negroes who reject such a philosophy. And yet, since it could never be said that such Negroes do not want social progress, what are they looking for that the NAACP does not offer? Now, I want to kind of stop it here because he, Cruz is posing a question to Black America, and he's basically saying, even though this organization, the NAACP, is a popular organization, because there are so many different strains of blacks in terms of class divides, this one particular organization does not necessarily represent the 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 values that these people might possess. So, in other words, was this particular group or this particular organization capable of truly addressing black people's ills as a collective? And so he's posing this question to the reader to get them to think, like, because in our lore, you know, the NAACP has a certain prestige to it, that a lot of people just assume that they just, was a group that really had black people's best interest. Um, there were other groups of people who thought differently. I mean, you had groups like the NOI who took a different approach, but for the most part, they've had a more positive view amongst black people. Um, and so for him, he's posing this question as if, well, basically taking a pause and saying to black people, like, did they really have the answers for black people that black people needed at that particular time
At that
or
time.
at any time in general?
Well, yeah, I was
So,
gonna say, I think, but I think if we're looking at it at that time, right? I think there's like
right.
the various phases and different uh time periods, like coming more into modern time where the NAACP, had whatever influence that they had on any kind of like, black issues from a national or societal level, right?
Hmm.
But at that time though, right? Like
Hmm.
what was its purpose? What was its use, given that there were other things going on,
Hmm.
particularly when it came to say like the black business class and stuff like that. I mean,
Hmm.
the NAACP wasn't around prior to it when they got that stuff going. So, it's like um it's kind of like a need versus intention. Was there a need for it versus what was the intention of it, right?
Yeah, because it was formed, I believe, in 1905. Du Bois set it up specifically as a um, counter to Booker T. Washington and the Tuskegee Machine and all of the things that he was pushing for.
And we covered that a lot in the
Yeah,
Booker T series. So if y'all want to check that out, where we go more in depth on that.
yeah. So that's important to keep in mind when you talk about an organization such as the NAACP. There was fierce battles during this time. So all black people was not on one accord, and that's something that we're going to keep reiterating because it's
Because we're
something that
not
we
on one
need to.
accord now.
Yes, so we need to keep that in mind. Like, so, when black people have this mindset of, why black people can't stick together. Well, there's this thing called ideology that makes it very difficult
Right.
for certain groups of people to work together because their worldview is diametrically opposed to the other side. And that makes it difficult for those particular people to actually work together. So we want to make sure y'all keep that in mind as y'all listening to this.
Try to remain as
There,
objective as
yes,
possible. Yeah.
exactly,
Yep.
because there were fierce battles. They wasn't, the opposing sides. They had some very serious things to say about each other. So keep
Yeah.
that in mind. Cruz goes further with the following assessment, quote unquote, to put the question in another way and in better focus. Although until recent years, the NAACP has had the prestige of being the major civil rights organization, its membership usually hovering somewhere between 350,000 and 400,000, it can hardly be said to reflect the pervasive sentiment of an ethnic group as large and as hard pressed as the American Negro. In other words, there is a definite strain of thought within the Negro group that encompasses all of the ingredients of nationality and strikes few sympathetic chords with the NAACP. Now, this is a very important point. This is a very important point because this is really setting the tone and the stage of why these groups had could not work together. Because NAACP was an organization that was more focused on integration, um, whereas you had groups of people in terms of black business class who were much more focused on um, had much more of a nationalistic outlook. In other words, they were wanting to set up their own institutions
Right.
and not wanting to be amongst white people in terms of economic activity. So this is very important to understand because
And,
you have two completely different worldviews at play here.
and I want to just kind of stress, right? That does not mean like to not that does not mean to not have that does not mean to not have like commerce. Not that doesn't mean to not conduct commerce, right? That didn't mean that. What it meant though was having, you know, your ability to have banks linked to each other to be able to facilitate like loan activity, for
Hmm.
example.
Right.
um, Being able to provide better insurance policies through larger group policy activity, right?
Right.
All of these different types of concepts where it's like if you kind of generate it within your own, much like how the Asian and Jewish communities do. Okay, it was, I would argue that prior to them really kind of coming here and really establishing themselves, they got the model from us. I would
Right.
argue it. But hey, that's just my take on that.
Um, this is a very important point that we have to remember. Um, because a lot of this is really kind of coming down to, for lack of a better word, philosophical differences.
We've seen a lot of
Um,
that around here lately.
yeah, so there the notion that a person like Booker T. Washington, for example, was against something like civil rights is completely erroneous. Um, it was more based on what his strategy was. So, um, and y'all have to remember that he tried to get Du Bois to come to Tuskegee twice to teach. So there was an attempt on his part to merge what they were about. And so because he was able to do it with Carter G. Woodson. I mean, not Carter G. Woodson, but George Washington Carver, who came to Tuskegee. Um, once Du Bois kind of fractured things, it became like either or proposition. So it became, well, Booker T is more worried about money, but he doesn't care about rights and stuff like that. That was
Hmm.
the myth that grew over time that people pushed forward because a lot of people decided to start going in a direction of um, Du Bois, specifically because Du Bois is known for basically creating the first sociological department in the United States at Atlanta University. So you have to keep this in mind that over time, as they were able to train more black people in the discipline, this started becoming a main thought process in terms of consciousness amongst black people. So we got to put these things together to really kind of understand where things kind of fell apart and why there was so much bitter rivalries as it relates to this particular time period.
Hmm.
But to continue, um, Cruz gives his reader a breakdown of a complicated experience regarding intracultural development regarding Black Americans, a topic that still has not been resolved today and seems to be going off the rails. Cruz digs deeper when he writes, quote, thus it can be seen that the present day conflict within the Negro ethnic group between integrationist and separatist tendencies has its origins in the historical arguments between personalities such as Frederick Douglass and Martin Delany. Although the peculiar social conditions and race relations in America have made it possible for the Frederick Douglass trend to be the more articulate and dominant up to now,
Hmm.
this has not always been so, and it does not mean, moreover, that the opposite strain has become non existent. Cruz's analysis highlights the reality that the integrationist crowd won the intellectual battle. However, they lost the institutional war. Integration was supposed to solve Black America's problems.
Repeat that. Wait. Repeat that point again.
Cruz's analysis highlights the reality that the integrationist crowd won the intellectual battle. However, they lost the institutional war.
Stop right there. I remember Martin saying something to the effect of like burning house or something to that effect.
Yes, yes,
Okay, you got
absolutely.
it. You got it. Go ahead.
He feared that he was trying to, he was urged or pushing his people to integrate into a burning building. And I think this was right after civil rights legislation was passed.
But that point was referencing what point? What point in time? Even like that was before even that they were referencing that, right?
No, this was the 60s when he said that.
Oh, the '60s when he said that. Okay, okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
This is after the
yeah,
legislation.
yeah.
Yep. Um, Integration was supposed to solve Black America's problems. That has hardly happened. According to Black Enterprise magazine, Black wealth is expected to be at zero by the
2053.
year 2053. Um, Inner cities, which have been predominantly Black for decades, are being gentrified primarily due to lack of economic development and lack of creative consciousness from Black inhabitants and political leaders. Black marriage rates are getting lower and lower. Black politics is another disaster. Why has there been such chaos in Black intercultural affairs if integration was supposed to resolve much of the problems that existed in Black America in relation to the legacy of Jim Crow? To answer this question, we need to analyze the social orientation of the Black intellectual class, which has been primarily socialist and communist leaning since the days of W.E.B. Du Bois and has continued with scholars such as E. Franklin Frazier, who we will cover. Harold Cruz puts it bluntly in reference to the Black intellectual class when he writes, "The Negro is, today, the victim of the incompetence of radical social theory and the 40-year default of the Negro intelligentsia." In 1967, Cruz was already challenging the state of the Black intelligentsia, just like his predecessor, Carter G. Woodson, in 1933. So-called scholars such as E. Franklin Frazier delivered scathing critiques toward the Black business class in his work, The Black Bourgeoisie, the book that brought the shock of self-revelation to middle class in America. As Frazier opens part two of his seminal work, he introduces the concept of Black business as the world of make-believe, caricaturing Black business development. Sorry about that, y'all.
Oh, okay. I thought it was an audio issue.
Uh,
Okay. All right. I thought it was an
Hold on one
audio
second.
issue. Okay.
Hold on one second. Let me go back. I want to make this point. Caricaturing Black business development as illegitimate and um, as illegitimate. It's clearly is a personal attack against the Black business class of America, who did their part to build Black institutions designed to protect Blacks and improve their condition. Continuing with the tradition of Du Bois and even amplifying it, Frazier mockingly questions the idea of Black business in his chapter labeled Negro Business, a Social Myth, when he writes, "Here our purpose is to show how false ideas concerning the importance of Negro business have become a social myth, and how this myth has been propagated among Negroes. This social myth has been one of the main elements in the world of make believe, which the black bourgeoisie has created to compensate for its feeling of inferiority in a white world dominated by business enterprise. If we read these words not knowing the race of this particular individual, we would assume he was racist and someone who is diminishing the contributions of the black business class and their institutional development for black America. However, as a black intellectual, E. Franklin Frazier was able to, with the stroke of a pen, eviscerate the black business class's contributions to the development of black America, not only through business, but educational, institutional development as well. Did you want to jump in here?
No, man, go ahead. Go,
Okay,
just run
okay, I
rock.
thought you were
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
get in.
go ahead.
Anyone who does serious research will debunk Frazier's infantile approach to the history of black business development and how it's been instrumental in the development of black social life in the United States. John Sibley Butler, in his phenomenal work, Entrepreneurship and Self Help Among Black Americans, a reconsideration of race in economics, addresses this small mindedness of E. Franklin Frazier and the consciousness that scholars like he and Du Bois have helped develop through academia. Butler writes, the sociology of entrepreneurship moved the analysis from a complete emphasis on topics such as assimilation and prejudice to the development of ethnic enterprises, which generates economic stability for ethnic groups.
Okay, I
Such,
do want you to repeat that point.
okay, okay. Oh man. The sociology of entrepreneurship moved the analysis from a complete emphasis on topics such as assimilation and prejudice to the development of ethnic enterprises, which generates economic stability for ethnic groups.
Mm-mm-mm.
Such an approach means that there is a concentration on the process by which ethnic groups develop, maintain, and expand business enterprises within the economic structure. In a real sense, it is the sociology of self help, recognizing that groups develop economic stability as a result of entrepreneurship.
Now,
Sometimes, go
I
ahead.
just wanted to say, I think what they refer to that in these sort of social media, like manosphere spaces, is, and I'm throwing this in air quotes, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. I think is that what they're kind of. I mean, they're relegating it to that, but I think this is more of a pragmatic description of what it means to be self-reliant,
Right.
and right, and what it meant to have that mentality at that time.
Um, well, I like how he talks about how, let's take it from the assimilation and the prejudice aspect, because those tend to be more emotional aspects of
Uh,
black
I
experience.
know where you're going. Yeah, yeah.
So, and one of the things that black people, especially black men in particular, live in fear of is being labeled not authentically black. So when you talk about assimilation, that's a dirty word in in conversations amongst black people. But what we're going to see is that what black people viewed as in terms of people like E. Franklin Frazier, whose book I think did a lot of damage to the psyche of black people. Um, what you see is that what black people represented, um, this black business class, what you see is that in a lot of ways they were the vanguard, you know, of a thought modality, because I was talking to I can't remember who it was, but I was saying how, black people represented truly what conservatives talked about in terms of compassionate capitalism,
Hmm.
because their notion of capitalism was based on being of service to other black people.
Right.
So every institution that they were building,
Basically, it was a service.
it was of service because it
Some
filled
kind
a
of service.
void and a need for
Yep.
black people.
And everything
So it
for
wasn't
yes.
just about making money. Yes.
Yeah. It made
So
everybody's so by virtue of that, everybody's quality of life was improved because
right,
technically speaking, no one had to kind of go without, so to speak, right?
right,
There was always
right,
somebody there to provide a service to fill the void or the gap of, like you need this done, you need
right.
tailoring, sewing, you need, insurance, you need banking, you need this, you
Yes.
need a, right? Uh,
Basically, it was a traditional mindset of our group of basically leave nobody behind.
right. Through and that and we're talking about through like community economics and shit like that, like the
Yes.
very thing that would prevent that from happening.
Right. So this is a very important for people to understand this assimilation piece because it drives a lot of conversation that we have had in these spaces, even when it comes to a topic like business. Um, there are a lot of black people who do believe that, based on what Fraser's saying, because we're gonna get into this,
Mhm.
that business, like a black person engaging in business, is some white people stuff.
Man, you know what? Hey,
So
go
so
ahead.
yeah, yeah, we're gonna get to it.
Yeah, I
So
was gonna say, man, go ahead
yeah.
and just go into it. I'm gonna step away for just a quick second. I'm just using the restroom, dude. I'll be right back. Go ahead, but go ahead and just go ahead and continue.
Well, I gotta use the bathroom too.
Oh, you know what? Well, you know what? You just take a quick break.
Yep.
All right, man. Like, I get your AR. Give us like 3 minutes, man. We'll be right back.
All right.
Quick intermission. Quick intermission. All right, y'all. I'm back. We'll wait for Rael to come back, and then we will
Yeah, I'm
continue.
here.
Okay, I appreciate y'all for pulling up on us for this. I guess morning stream for some of us, midday for y'all. Some of y'all appreciate y'all for pulling up. Please like the live stream if you're digging it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And we're going to let Raul get back into it.
Okay, so go back to it. The sociology of entrepreneurship moves the analysis from a complete emphasis on topics such as assimilation and prejudice to the development of ethnic enterprises, which generates economic stability for ethnic groups. Such an approach means that there is a concentration on the process by which ethnic groups develop, maintain, and expand business enterprises within the economic structure. In a real sense, it is the sociology of self-help, recognizing that groups develop economic stability as a result of entrepreneurship. Sometimes self-help means owning a push cart, a small shop, or a small farm in a community. The emphasis is not on the prestige of the enterprise, but rather it is on simply owning an enterprise that will bring about economic stability. Indeed, entrepreneurial professionals such as doctors and lawyers, because of the same ethnic experience of others in the group, find solidarity with the pushcart owner or the owner of a fruit stand in community organizations. Because of economic stability, parents of self help groups are more able to launch their children into professional occupations within a larger economic sector because of the importance that the group places on education.
That's why you always see like the first generation of an immigrant go into like a medical,
You took
STEM.
it right exactly where I was going to take it.
Go ahead, dude.
This was important to make this distinction because there is a notion that other groups of people are more adept at placing their children in more advantageous positions in terms of setting them up for uh, professions than black people. But what we're gonna
That's a
find
lie.
out is that black people historically have done the same thing.
Yep, it's a lie.
They have actually done the same thing. Facing similar oppressive conditions other groups of people face. Um, Butler opens the reader to an idea that really has been shrouded for decades. The idea that blacks who engage in business development in face of American racism are no different than other groups of people who have done the very same thing facing the same oppressive conditions. Why does this matter? It matters because of how the black intelligentsia has promulgated an erroneous idea that the black business class, primarily directed towards men like Booker T. Washington, were less black, an idea that permeates throughout the collective consciousness of blacks to this very day. The black intelligentsia's character assassination of men like Booker T. Washington and men like him was an attempt to silence this rich history of black business development and become the de facto leadership apparatus of black America, thus selling out the black business class and black people as a whole and keeping an inspirational legacy hidden that should be part of African Americans' total story during this pivotal time in their history. Let's begin with Carter G. Woodson's phenomenal work, The Miseducation of the Negro, a book that dissects the state of education for Black intellectuals and how it has crippled their intellectual rigor for decades. Surprisingly, Woodson recognized the system was faulty already within his time. Woodson states, quote, our most widely known scholars have been trained in universities outside of the South. Northern and Western institutions, however, have had no time to deal with matters which concern the Negro especially. They must direct their attention to the problems of the majority of the constituents, and too often they have stimulated their prejudices by referring to the Negro as unworthy of consideration. What Woodson demonstrates from the outset is that Black Americans' interest in white academia was not a concern regarding the proper development of intellectual disposition of Black students regarding issues that affected their group. According to Woodson, Black interests are not at the forefront of whites' minds in predominantly white institutions. Whites' issues are at the forefront. Woodson goes on to say, the children from the homes of white planters and merchants live permanently in the midst of calculations, family budgets, and the like, which enable them sometimes to learn more by contact than the Negro can acquire in school. Instead of teaching such Negro children less arithmetic, they should be taught much more of it than the white children. For the
Mm.
latter attend a graded school consolidated by free transportation. When the Negroes go to one room rented hovels to be taught without equipment and by incompetent teachers, educated scarcely beyond the eighth grade.
Kind of sounds like what you got right now.
Yes. Woodson delivers an insightful critique of the circumstances in which Black students develop intellectually and economically, and how this lack of development impairs the overall development of Blacks and their ability to build a community, aspects of Black life that still ring true today. Woodson states further, in the schools of business administration, Negroes are trained exclusively in the psychology and economics of Wall Street and are therefore made to despise the opportunities to run ice wagons, push banana carts, and sell peanuts among their own people. Foreigners who have not studied economics but have studied Negroes take up this business and grow rich. Now we need to stop it right here.
Uh oh. Uh oh.
We need to stop it right here. All right. This is this is one of the most insightful passages of this book because the late David Carroll used to say, the white man's ice is colder. And this is kind of a play on that because he's talking about how the black the blacks of that time were trained in white institutions um, to focus on the glamour of Wall Street and all of that, which was not a negative thing, but to look down upon actual starting businesses from the ground level, which had been something that was very instrumental during the times of Booker T when he was encouraging Black people to start from this particular model. Because from those particular models, you had Black business, in terms of institutions, be developed from those humble beginnings. And so, what he's saying here is that you have foreigners that they never studied economics in college, but they looked at Black people doing these very types of things and who grew rich by imitating Black people.
Kind of like
Okay.
today.
So when we have Black people that sit there and say other groups of people are more adept, they're more capable of being entrepreneurial and things like that,
Not true.
this is completely untrue.
Not
This
true.
history is this particular section in the miseducation of the Negro is showing that we have a whole history of doing just that. If they're copying us, then we demonstrated success at doing this for these people. If they're using our model, like they're using our model to do this. Um, Woodson delivers a powerful blow against the miseducated class of Blacks who value elite whites' views and institutions on what successful Blacks look like. Sadly, his commentary addressing foreigners who emulate the economic blueprint of Blacks during that time highlights the reality that Blacks during this period came from a people who viewed economic advancement as a primary concern for Black development. evidenced by the works of Booker T. Washington and what he accomplished at Tuskegee.
Mm-hmm.
Woodson continues, considering his race as blank in achievement, then he sets out to stimulate their imitation of others. Facing this undesirable result, the highly educated Negro often grows sour. He becomes too pessimistic to be a constructive force and usually develops into a chronic fault finder or a complainant at the bar of public opinion.
Oh shit.
Often, when he sees that the fault lies at the door of the white oppressor whom he is afraid to attack, he turns upon the pioneering Negro who is at work doing the best he can to extricate himself from an uncomfortable predicament. Now, now,
Oh god.
now,
Oh gosh.
we gotta really take this in, man. We gotta really take this in, y'all. Because now remember, the Miseducation of the Negro came out in 1933. So you have the death of Booker T. Washington, 1915. Major figure exits the scene.
Yeah.
You have Marcus Garvey locked up.
And then sent
He's
away.
deported in 1927. So you have two major figures, the two most powerful figures as it relates to the idea of Black economic advancement.
And industrialism.
Gone. Yes. Gone from the scene.
Like it did, they literally just took away the, what would you say, the source that would actually spur that industrial spirit,
Right.
that industrialist spirit.
Right.
It was like, get these guys out of the way, get them out of
Yes. Yes.
here. Yeah.
So, but he's saying here that the Black intellectual is a person who has been turned into someone who is constantly looking for imperfection. He or she is constantly looking for what's wrong with the system all the time. Not taking the advantages that they have in the system to build amongst their own. Because they don't have any desire to build. Okay? And then they turn that ire towards the Black men who actually take on that role of building.
Well, the mindsets are juxtaposed, right?
Very much so.
That's kind of like maybe the inevitable sort of result of this.
Yes.
And that's kind of why we're kind of we're digging in the crates on this, and then we kind of reference it to today, and this is the question where, for everybody listening, that you ask yourself this, like, where do you lie in terms of like how you see things to be, or are we to be a more industrious people, or are we to be more of a academic based people, essentially?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Given, and I'm asking this given the precipice of the fourth industrial age. I mean, precipice, we're in it. Right. So for as much talk as you hear STEM, I beg of you, I ask the question, is academia the answer? I've just seems like all the guys that are running the world are college dropouts.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I'm a college dropout too. But that's neither here nor there.
Me, and you should wear that as a badge of honor.
No, not to digress, man. Go ahead.
Woodson illuminates for the reader what seems to be a sense of despair in the mind of black intellectuals during his time regarding black advancement. The black intellectual looks down on the black businessman, which should be a source of pride for him, um, according to the assessment of Woodson. By becoming bitter, the black intellectual looks for everything wrong in society while ignoring the things that go right regarding black business development. In other words, the black intellectual doesn't want black institutions, but feels out of place in white institutions at the same time. Woodson demonstrates this when he writes, these educated people, however, decry any such thing as race consciousness. And in some respects, they are right. They do not like to hear such expressions as Negro literature, Negro poetry, African art, or thinking black. And roughly speaking, we must concede such things do not exist. The irony in Woodson's comments cannot be lost here. While black intellectuals during this period and even now claim to speak on behalf of black people, they are culturally and intellectually allergic to black institutions, evidenced by the decades long suppression of the history of black business development. Continuing his assault on the educational power structure in America and how it cripples the minds of black people, Woodson writes, an observer An observer from outside of the situation naturally inquires why the Negroes, many of whom serve their race as teachers, have not changed this program. These teachers, however, are powerless. Negroes have no control over their education and have little voice in their other affairs pertaining thereto. In a few cases, Negroes have been chosen as members of public boards of education, and some have been appointed members of private boards. But these Negroes are always such a small minority that they do not figure in the final working out of the educational program. The education of the Negroes, then, the most important thing in the uplift of the Negroes, is almost entirely in the hands of those who have enslaved them and now segregate them. Here, Woodson chides tokenism for blacks, put in positions of pseudo authority, giving the impression blacks are advancing, when in reality, not only are blacks prevented from advancing, but they are espousing the very ideology that keeps them from advancing collectively. Whereas intellectual development should bring about a curiosity and understanding of one's environment while helping one develop critical skills to help one solve problems imposed by said environment, black intellectual development centers around the notion that blacks are incapable and not good enough. And when blacks do accomplish something, it's by sheer luck.
It's wait, so it's we're gonna have to maybe do some sort of separate live stream, completely separate, right? Maybe or maybe not. Maybe this is something we can just sort out real quick. But literally, the difference between being educated and being intelligent.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know what I
We
mean?
me and you've been talking about this a lot. So yeah,
There's yeah, they're
yeah.
not inextricably linked like that, like that, like
No,
that.
they're not.
They're not at all.
Absolutely not. No,
Okay, they're
no.
not.
Um, for example, when we hear someone say, "quote unquote," the first African American in history to do whatever accomplishment one performs, this statement assumes a black person was expected to not be able to do
It's
this
a whole.
particular action.
It's like a damn mind fuck almost.
Yes,
Every time they do that shit.
right. When have you heard someone say the first white American to do
Never.
quote unquote of any kind of exceptional act? Built into the statement itself is the notion that a black man, woman, boy, or girl could not perform it in the first place. It represents an underdog consciousness in blacks when they adopt the idea they couldn't perform great tasks.
Not. Hey,
This
wait.
idea,
I just
go
want to
ahead.
say real quick. Now, not to mention this silly notion of a history month when nobody else wants one, right?
Right, right. This idea fed racist ideas that black men couldn't be quarterbacks, couldn't do well in the position because the position required the ability to think and break down information. One of the most ludicrous prejudices towards black men and blacks in general. To really understand the level of poison that blacks have received from the miseducation system in America, we need to look at Amos Wilson's work, The Developmental Psychology of the Black Child, and how this fits into this overall context of miseducation from Woodson. Wilson writes, genetically speaking, the source of achievement motivation is almost purely of cultural familial origin. It develops out of the particular social structure of the society, which in turn influences the independence training and expectance levels set by parents, especially mothers. Cross-cultural studies, as well as studies of individuals with high and low needs to achieve, have strongly indicated that early demands by mothers on their children to act independently, standing up for rights, knowing the way around town, etc., prepare their children to meet challenges. The demanding and expectation of success from the child by the society, parents, teachers, and significant others early in the child's life, particularly preschool life, have been consistently shown to provide the basis for high achievement motivation. Wilson, as a Pan African psychologist and businessman, explodes onto the scene to reinforce Woodson's contention surrounding the education that blacks receive that diminishes their overall value. An important point Wilson posits concerns the idea that motivation to achieve revolves around culture and family. Culture and family seem to be used here as a macro micro concept that provides the impetus for high achievement or low achievement. Upon further analysis, when the reader understands Woodson's concern for black development from, from an ethnic ethos position regarding black people's intercultural view of themselves, along with Wilson's assessment, one realizes that the psychological makeup of black people from infancy can be distorted long before a baby takes a first step. In other words, whereas early childhood education sets the foundation for poor performance or lack of high achievement,
Hmm.
advanced education seeks to codify this insidious form of propaganda, wherein which the person who this ideology victimizes participates in his or her own demise from a self-concept perspective, operating like an intercultural inquisition where the victim denies one's identity and humanity to avoid punishment. This twisted mindset does not inspire one to greatness. Instead, it moves the believer to a position where black achievement, when viewed in comparison to what whites have, is never good enough and despised. Wilson drives this notion home further when he writes in his section, Socialization and the Black Child, Disproportionate Risk Taking. Cognitively, this means that the individual will either not try to solve problems, will attack problems which provide almost no challenge to his abilities, or he will go to the opposite extreme and try to solve problems for which he has not prepared himself mentally. This often is the result of the fact that the individual lacks the knowledge and patience to prepare himself to deal with the problem and to correctly gauge his mental prowess and has not calculated his chances of solving the problem. Wilson's sharp analysis gets right to the heart of the matter. Blacks are ill equipped to face issues collectively because of their approach to problem solving lacks the cognitive abilities to resolve the issues. The adage, a people perish for a lack of knowledge, is very appropriate here. Wilson goes further with the following. This approach to problem solving, hold on one second. This approach to problem solving develops out of a lifestyle where people have been, like blacks, have been told what to think and have been punished or rejected for thinking independently, and who have not been taught, rewarded, or encouraged in terms of how to think. Blacks have been made to feel safe and secure only when they cognitively express low level non-threatening, routinized, approved, cliche thought. I'm gonna say that one more time. Blacks have been made to feel safe and secure only when they cognitively express low-level, non-threatening, routinized, approved, cliche thought. Thus,
Oh, wait a
blacks,
minute. You
yes,
mean kind of like
yeah,
modern day black culture?
yes,
Okay, go
yes.
ahead. Go ahead.
Thus, blacks chronically practice this type of cognition, which involves little gamble and a wide margin of safety from white critical reaction. The black working and lower classes use 3 to 4 times as many imperative responses which indicate what is to be done without any accompanying explanation of why or how it is to be done, commands and requests without explanation as the black middle class. Wilson's introduction of the class dynamic must not be underestimated here. The class component demonstrates there are two different consciousness, which makes sense because we're dealing with two different worlds. However, the problem here is we must accept the reality of the two consciousness while simultaneously accepting the reality only one gets to be defined as the de facto consciousness of black thought accepted as a virtue. Low level cognitive functioning regarding solving problems in Black America are celebrated, whereas high level cognitive approaches to problems gets demeaned as a white value system, which hurts Blacks' abilities to solve their own problems, thus keeping them looking for white America to solve them through poor political advocacy. Wilson continues.
Huh.
Go ahead,
Okay.
go ahead.
No,
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 you can
no,
go.
no, 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 no. Go ahead. Nope. Go ahead.
Wilson continues. This means that the largest percentage of Black children are being socialized in such a way that they are learning unthinking obeisance to authority, what to think or not to think at all, and not how to think by their own parents. Strict conformity to the parents' way of thinking is often viewed by the working and lower class to indicate a good child. There is evidence to indicate that children of mothers who use a relatively high amount of imperative responses tended to score lower on IQ and concept formation tasks, to be less verbal when dealing with test materials. This tendency is reversed by children of mothers who use a relatively low level of imperative responses. Wilson's brilliant insight into the psychic development or lack thereof of black children gives the reader a glimpse into the world of black cultural thought that paints a pretty grim picture. On the one hand, black people's abilities to solve their own problems are hampered by the education they receive. On the other hand, when there are black people who come along offering practical measures that can allow blacks to empower them to solve
Uh
their own
huh.
problems,
Uh
there
huh.
is pushback because the solution
Oh
looks
yeah.
like it's a white concept or value system, as if whites are the only ones to possess the ability to problem solve. Wilson continues in a section labeled Interest in Chance and Not Control. Black life in general and lower class black life in particular are chancy affairs. Blacks' control over their lives is severely restricted, and their continued existence is more a combination of caution and luck than anything else when compared to their white counterparts. Thus, chance and fate, luck and fatalism are salient factors in the Black world and invade Black cognitive processes to a remarkable degree. Consequently, Black cognition is not oriented toward mastery and control, which circumstances have taught are not their prerogatives, such prerogatives being seen by them to belong to whites. Therefore, few Blacks sharpen their abilities to assume mastery and control of quote unquote white people's problems, such as the problems of science, mathematics, literature,
That's
etc.
that's their problems.
Yes,
Oh yeah. Okay.
yes.
All right.
So he's really getting at this from a psyche standpoint. That's why I love
Yeah,
Wilson,
yeah,
because
that's
he's
what
a
I'm saying. Like,
psychologist.
I didn't want to interrupt. That's why I had to stop. I had to stop myself
Yeah,
from interrupting you. Go ahead, dude.
yeah. Now that's what you could say, because it's like he really gets at it from that really deep psychic fear
Yep,
perspective.
the fear perspective.
Like he's
Yes.
really like delving into why this mentality. What is this mentality? Where is it coming from? But the irony of it is, which goes back to Carter G. Woodson, is Carter G. Woodson's whole frame of reference was to show the history of Black development, to show
Yeah,
the
and Black Thought.
accomplishments of Black people.
Yep, and Black Thought, because like you just mentioned, the
Yes,
psyche.
yes, he did so much in
He did so
terms of that,
much. Yeah,
you know. And so when you when you have somebody who is basically, because he was a historian, so when you have somebody of his magnitude that is trying to catalog the greatness of Black people, he's seeing that there was a need for this, because Black people were not, you know, they were kind of losing that knowledge. And this was 1933. He was seeing the miseducation really take form, and this was not that long, like I said, after Booker T. Washington and Garvey left the scene. So for 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 him to really analyze and really look at this education model and see that there were very deep deficiencies
there was
in
some
it.
years. There was what did you say? It was 6 years after.
Yeah, this is so
This is
Garvey is,
yeah.
yeah, so
This
that's
so
6 years.
this
Yeah,
is six
six
years
years after
after Garvey's
Garvey was
gone. But
deported.
then there's when Booker T passed away some years prior to that. So let's go from the time Garvey was he was sent away, right? Let's go from that time. So then it was 6 years from that point till he wrote the book. So there were 6 years for him to really observe this
Yes,
sort of social shift.
yes,
And I think that's what gave him these thoughts and these ideas.
right. And for the audience, you know, you got to understand. Like he went to Harvard too. He was the second Black
That's
person to
another
receive a
point. I
PhD
think, yeah, I think that's another
from
point
Harvard.
we need to put on the wood. Say that again,
Yes,
bro.
he was the second Black person to get a PhD from Harvard. Du Bois was obviously the first.
There you go.
So, but he did not he did not have solidarity with Du Bois in his positions. I mean, as you can clearly see when he was
As you
talking
can,
about
yeah.
the ice carts and stuff, like he was saying that that's powerful work that we were doing. And so, and this is from somebody who is an educated person. He was at Harvard, and
Well, no,
so
let's go there. Two PhDs from Harvard, two
yes,
diametrically opposed positions.
two diametrically opposed positions. He did not take Du Bois' position. He didn't. And I think this is very important for people to recognize. Like, even from his particular background, he was of a different mindset. He was from a different mindset. Um, Keep going. The disinterest in mastery, because self mastery is considered um, a white class value concept, is by far one of the most psychologically debilitating thought processes Black people can internalize. In an environment such as America, where science and math skills are giving birth to some of the wealthiest people, especially at younger ages, keeps Blacks from competing when Blacks did not possess this internalized inferiority complex during times when racism was in its most virulent forms. In fact, the opposite was true. As we will see later, once we visit John Sibley Butler's work, Entrepreneurship and Self-Help Among Black Americans, a Reconsideration of Race and Economics. Wilson continues. They leave their fate to chance and to whites, and their problems are left to be solved by these same factors, while efforts at controlling and mastering their fate and problems through their own work are lagging or non existent. Quote unquote, why put a lot of time and effort into development of mastery and control and into the development of knowledge when the white man will take care of that in us too, unquote, seems to be the guiding fiction of blacks. This myth is even operative in the black school child who figures that learning the three R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, is
Arithmetic.
for white folks. The irony here, as we process Wilson's words, is the fact that the very black people who blame whites for all their problems in the same breath have the expectation of whites solving their problems, while being unwilling to build the cognitive abilities necessary that will orient them towards establishing the institutions that best protect them and reinforce their self concept. What the audience will come to learn is that this perceived inferiority is a new concept, which really has been reinforced by blacks themselves, not whites. It's one thing for whites to openly express their prejudice or racist views towards blacks, but blacks reject this perceived inferiority by not pushing um, back against the literature. It's an entirely different thing to have whites express these silly notions, yet have your academic class reinforce these ideas through black victimization and grievance-based politics. Grievance-based politics are nothing but the notion of white superiority echoed through black people's perceptions of themselves. In other words, black people's understanding of their perceived inferiority to whites is viewed through the lens of whites.
And
Wilson can go ahead.
and I just wanted to make a distinction versus what it is that we speak to in terms of like being actively politically involved,
Hmm.
right? Because when you have a business interest, when you have various types of interests, then you need to have a political interest tied to that. And that's not a victim or a lesser than position that you're taking. That's actually a bolstered position.
Right,
You want your business to work along with your politics and vice versa.
right, right. Um, Wilson continues regarding the section lack of interest and feedback. Boy, this is
Say that
brutal right
again.
here. Lack of interest and feedback.
Okay.
Quote, since blacks are given relatively little control over their lives and have little influence over white power, and since favor or disfavor carry a strong arbitrary flavor, close attention to feedback from their own behavior and the use of such feedback to correct or modify their behavior is not as important as it would be under different circumstances. Since their efforts, whether good or bad, turn out to be almost always considered inferior, bad, or worthless when compared to whites or measured by white standards, interest in the results of their own cognitive behavior or performance by blacks is bound to suffer. The black in such a situation asks himself, why should I knock myself out thinking, learning, and working when what results from it will be judged inferior if noticed at all? Why should I give a damn about the results of my behavior if no one else does? These questions plague the black adult as well as the black preschool and school child and interfere significantly with their cognition.
I'm about
Thus,
to say that is like one of the most sort of limiting mindsets to have.
yes, yes, self-defeating, man. It's a form of
It's just
not
you keep
like
putting
a
a wall
self.
in
It's
front of yourself
nihilism.
just to knock it down and then put another one up. It's like, damn. Okay, I'm sorry, dude. It's just it kind of caught me, man, and that was the thought that I had.
Right. Um, Thus, behavioral and cognitive processes are not informed or controlled by feedback information, and therefore, productive cognition is not really distinguished from unproductive cognition. As a consequence, Much of the black child, as well as the black adult's cognition, is characterized by massive, repetitive, unproductive, illogical processes, disorganization, and low level stereotype thought processes.
Oh
Many
shit.
black school children simply refuse to think and just guess at solutions instead of working at them.
Okay, wait. When was this written?
1977, I think.
Oh, so we're gonna go 46 years into the future, and it just seems as though this guy wrote this shit yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. Rest in
Mhm.
peace to the
Yeah, yeah. Rest in peace. Go ahead, man.
guy. The conditions of black life lead to a spirited anti-intellectualism of the poor. Associated with this stance is a rejection of intellectuality, following in part from a mistrust of the unfamiliar, a sense of being unable to compete in modes of reasoning not familiar to them, and in part from a reluctance to accept standards of evaluation which would be to their disadvantage if applied to them.
Okay, Ryle,
Also,
real quick. Um, y'all, I'm gonna update the description with the book list. I'm gonna update it because we talked earlier this morning. Just decided to go ahead and just go live today to do this. To just get this series started because we've been putting it off for well, I just blame it on me. Anyway, um, so I'm gonna update the description. But Ryle, there's Truth and Sir Tice. They both want to know what is the book you're reading from right now. Just
this is this
yeah,
is from Amos Wilson's The Developmental Psychology of the Black Child.
Amos Wilson. Wait, read the title
The
again.
Developmental Psychology of the Black
Of the Black
Child.
Child. Amos Wilson, Developmental Psychology of the Black Child. That's that book. But I will update the description. All right.
A must have in your personal library.
Yeah.
A must have.
I'll get it updated.
Um, Also, life circumstances of the poor orient them to practical action. Um, their participation at work has not typically been that of policymaking. Their gratification is not that of evaluating means and of developing ideas to guide action. Wilson's categorization should be a wake up call for Black Americans. Well, this book came out in '78. The reason for that being is quite simple. Wilson stated this in 1978 when his book was first printed. When Wilson states much of the black child as well as the black adult's cognition is characterized by massive, repetitive, unproductive, illogical processes, disorganization, and low-level stereotype thought processes, we all should shudder because Wilson posits the idea that there really is no difference in the cognitive ability between children and adults in Black America from a collective perspective. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know like that is not something that we really want to hear, man, but I mean we're talking about somebody who was a psychologist
Yep.
and he
And
was for black people too.
and I want to say also he had a BA in business.
Yes, he did.
I want to say he had a BA in business too. See, so Amos Wilson would speak about this from a 360-degree perspective. That's why he's one of my favorite thinkers of, let's just say, my developmental age as a Gen Xer. Like
Yes.
people like him and Kawanza Kunjufu.
Yes. In all honesty, it's quite embarrassing for any group of people's adult population to
Hmm.
have the same level of reasoning skills as children. Many times, when dialoguing with Black Americans on a range of topics, a debate cannot be had because majority of the time, one or both participants do not have the requisite information necessary to have a sophisticated debate. As Mumia Obsidian Ali stated years ago, Black folks don't allow facts and data to get in their way of a debate. In other
No,
words,
wait. Now, just for the record, did you just quote Obsidian?
I sure did.
Ah!
I sure did. So that was one of the most insightful things you've ever
Oh
said. I'm gonna
shit!
give credit where credit is due.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
In other words,
Oh
shout out to
man.
Obsidian. In other words, you can give many blacks all the data you want so they could even research for themselves. However, the intellectual disposition or lack thereof, the lack of a curious mind to go deeper to solve complex problems, has become emblematic of black culture. Notice I said has become. Much of black thought is either self righteous or reactionary, neither of which allows for the person who exemplifies these personality traits to receive information contrary to what they believe. Harriet Tubman, according to the narrative, ran up against this mindset and she even said, I could have freed a lot more people if they could have recognized they were slaves, to paraphrase, if she couldn't convince blacks of their condition. On the plantation, imagine how difficult it is now to convince blacks they have become their worst enemy when many blame whites for everything that goes wrong in their lives, when many blacks are failing in life through self imposed notions of inferiority they have internalized through an educational system that keeps blacks in mental bondage. Wilson further expands with the following concerning his section, Seeking the Company of Friends Instead of Experts.
Wait. Say that again.
This is a section in his book called Seeking the Company of Friends Instead of Experts.
Mm-hmm.
This characteristic is almost self explanatory. The anti intellectualism of blacks, which we have just discussed, means that they tend to reject the very sources of problem solving information. Hold on one second. Consequently, libraries may go relatively unused, books unread and seldom consulted for problem solving purposes or for the purposes of increasing knowledge and cognitive power. Research methods, resource development of knowledge and cognitive power are stagnated or retarded. Academically speaking, it has been observed that what the black student cannot get from his assigned text or is not told to him by his teacher or friends, he does not diligently seek elsewhere. His cognitive supports tend to take on a personal, affiliative tone rather than an objective, factually verifiable one that uses the work of experts in the relevant area. Thus, his cognitive processes and outcomes are guided and supported by subjective and personal reference. Now, this is very important. This analysis is very important because what it shows is that in our group we have this um this fear of getting the actual right information. And see, this is where the problem comes in for black people who have a disdain for knowledge. And I mean, when I say knowledge, I'm talking about practical knowledge that can help you solve your problems. Because a lot of blacks want to hold on to their complaint and their grievance instead of having a solution to the very grievances and problems that they talk about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've gotten so used to having a grievance, it's almost become their crutch. They can't exist without it. And so, no matter how, because we've experienced this in this space, like we've had actual black men try to clown us for presenting information that can be transformative in their lives
Right.
to help them shift to different modalities
Like a
in
whole
terms of
paradigm.
productivity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
because we understand what's at stake here. We understand what we're facing collectively. And then when we look at our history and know that men like Booker T. Washington or William Hooper Council and different types of black men who set up HBCUs to literally have us in the position to take advantage of those waves that were coming in terms of new ages being brought in. We had this thought process to be in the know, to understand, to take these opportunities and set us set ourselves up to be in a very um, advantageous position. Whereas now we hear a lot of people talking about we hear a lot of people pushing forth this fear of AI. Oh, what are we gonna do? What about jobs? Like it's like we can't keep being in that position, being constantly
Hmm.
scared of change.
Reactionary.
Change is gonna constantly happen. That's just the nature of the beast.
That's
Like
what is it? That is the only constant.
it's the only
It's
constant.
the only
So
constant is change. Yeah.
so but what Wilson is getting at is because you have blacks who like to be around people who make them feel comfortable in their outdated thought processes. They will avoid the people who have that expertise. I say this all the time. Like black people, the only group of people that I see who argue with their experts.
I
And
mean, you
so,
know what? Wait, man. Look,
like,
say that shit again, dude.
it's the craziest thing. Like, and so, like, I was saying this stuff before I came across this book. So I'm like, yo, so even he was saying it. Like we're the only group that argue with our experts. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're the only ones. I mean, we could have somebody like Alonzo Hall get on panels and talk about life insurance and how powerful it is in terms of state planning and things like that. And you are guaranteed to have some black person come with never took the test, don't know, never
Don't have
worked the
none of the
field,
licenses he got.
don't have none of the license he has, and they will attempt to try to shout him down and try to act like he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Right, right.
This is a very serious problem because you have to get the knowledge. You have to get the knowledge. That's how you're going to transform. But if you don't, if you shun the people with the experts with the knowledge, you're going to stay in the same position as those people that surround you, and you're going to stay in that grievance mode, um, doing what we've been doing from a collective standpoint for the past 100 years. I mean, me personally, I'm not interested in seeing us grievance based complaining for the next 100 years. Like
Man, look, I'm like this, dude.
that's
I'm
BS,
like,
bro.
I don't know. I think I was programmed with this whole notion that this motherfucker is supposed to be better than what it was when I left this bitch. So by the time I leave it, it's gonna have to be better than what it was when I got here because I got a child to pass some shit off to. You get what I'm
Mm,
saying? So like that's my modus operandi right there. Hey, go ahead and rock, dude. I gotta just I'm gonna just handle this quick phone call. Give me like 3 minutes. Go ahead. You got it.
okay.
Okay.
Academically speaking, it has been observed that what the black student cannot get from his assigned text or is not told to him by his teacher or friends, he does not diligently seek elsewhere. His cognitive supports tend to take on a personal, affiliative tone rather than an objective one. An objective, factually verifiable one that uses the work of experts in the relevant area. Thus, his cognitive processes and outcomes are guided and supported by subjective and personal reference. Wilson truly is a master of psychology regarding blacks and why their psychological disposition is the way it is. He pulls no punches, he speaks the absolute truth. When one has philosophical debates, quote unquote, among blacks, especially educated or pseudo educated blacks, one can't help but notice how many of their arguments can't hold up to beneath the surface level scrutiny. Wilson identifies the common practice among black students and blacks overall being unwilling to go above and beyond to really get to the heart of the matter. What blacks typically do is feel the emotions of things. then stay stuck at that position, never coming to a resolution. This is why blacks, especially in the social media age, with Facebook pages and YouTube channels, tend to gravitate to spaces that only reinforce what they want to believe, not spaces that forces them to think, which is what Wilson references earlier. One of the issues we see pushed in this particular space, for example, is the notion of getting black boys more resources to read. Okay, fair enough. But here's the question: how many of the males who use the idea of black boys' inability to read actually read themselves? How many men in this space has increased their knowledge utilizing peer-reviewed articles, books, etc.? The point is, the very sources of knowledge that could bring about resolutions to a plethora of issues are being underutilized by the very males who claim to care about the lack of reading capacity in black boys. Talk about irony. The reason why it's a pseudo issue is because they never have to actually formulate a plan to improve the reading capacities of black boys. Their cohort of males get to exist in the space believing they are challenging the forces they believe hinder black male development, in the same way they believe they're challenging white males in the political structure when they haven't set up one political action committee or PAC, pull their money to get a candidate's attention to represent them and lobby for their issues to be addressed. Wilson goes deeper when he writes regarding his section, lack of activity and initiative. The relatively low level of social, political, economic, educational activity among blacks in general is paralleled by an equal low level of cognitive, creative activity and initiative. Intellectual and creative activity is not demanded of blacks in America, and blacks have been and are taught that they do not have a major intellectual and creative role to play in America. Their children are socialized with these things in mind, even when top notch equipment and resources are available to the black child. He may not take full advantage of them to improve himself and activate his cognitive processes. The negative self concepts inculcated in the black child by American social conditions and by parental and communal socialization practices operate to discourage markedly cognitive activity and development in the black child. Um, what he's talking about here is just the overall environment in which black children find themselves um, growing up in tends to just reinforce uh, um, the lack of the lack of interest in true knowledge attainment. Um, it's not just at school; it's in the home. It's in the entertainment. Um, I remember when I used to go to these meetings at school, and it was an Indian young lady who used to come to our meetings. We had these pro black meetings, and I never forget when she said to me, her dad went to her school principal in high school, and he went to the principal, white principal, out of concern for the black students, and he was like, he went to the principal out of concern for their lack of achievement. Like they wasn't he knew that they weren't taking school seriously. And he went to the principal, he said, "Man, what are y'all gonna do about for the black students here?" He
Mm-hmm.
said, "They're really suffering and failing." So he really did have a concern. And the white principal's response was, he said, "Man, some people are just destined to fail."
Hmm.
And I appreciated her father for, stepping up and addressing it. But this was the mentality of the principal of the school, who is literally supposed to be hired to ensure
The
that
success of
the
the student.
students get quality education.
Dude, I was literally just talking to a friend about this shit. Well, you know, well, without putting too much out there, I told you about it on the phone.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was just like, wow, you know, we have literally, it's been baked in the cake to be anti-academic achievement, which is ironic because what we're going to show is eventually is how much of a, in terms of education, how much of a class value this was for black people, even over whites, you know. And um it was just sad, man, just to hear her recount that story. And this is what Wilson is really getting to, the value set, you know, the class value set. Um, and um, it's something that obviously has to change because we're in such a challenging time, but the resources are there to actually be able to grow and learn. You know,
I
we
would say
have,
that, if somebody
oh my
tells
God,
you that you're going to be a permanent underclass in what, 30 years,
yeah,
you would think that you might start thinking a little bit differently about the future.
right,
But I guess, I digress, right?
right.
Oh, wait, I think Ryle is muted for just a second. So for those of y'all that have kind of made it in through the first part of this series of the live streams, we appreciate y'all for rocking with us, dropping the comments. Let me shout out some people, man. We got Maddox 12 in the house. What's going on, Sir Tice? Welcome, brother. Roger Spice, you know what it is, fam. CL Edwards, what's going on, man? You are absolutely correct on that comment, man. Amos Wilson is required reading along with watching his lectures. I soaked a lot of that game up years ago, and this is the reason why we're circling back and referencing him. So, I appreciate the fact that you've gotten a chance to really kind of soak in what it is that he's had to say. Um, Truth, as I know it, what's going on, conservative. I'm not sure who's gonna check you about what exactly, but welcome, dude. Beef and Brock, you know what time it is, brother. Welcome. I go Yami and A. What's going on, brother? Welcome. Big Ike, Shango Zulu, you know what it is. Afro SF, welcome. Senku, how's it going, man? Welcome. LOM, man, welcome. Admiral Smoke, you know what it is. Manuel Briggs, Don Double O. So yeah, man, we just want to welcome everybody for coming in here. We're gonna rock for about another 15 minutes, and then I got daddy duties. I gotta go pick my kid up from school. So I'm gonna go ahead and Ryle, you go ahead and finish this out, man, and then
Uh,
we'll circle back for another live stream later on this evening.
all right. This is a damning indictment of a twisted form of intellectual development amongst Black Americans. Black culture has codified the lack of intellectual depth as a class virtue. Um, well, what about all the educated Black people with degrees, you might say? That's the whole point of this endeavor, to demonstrate that what masks as Black intellectual development really is self imposed subjugation. It's what Carter G. Woodson refers to as worst sort of lynching, referring to the idea that the Negro condition is hopeless. Tying into Wilson's argument, Woodson states the Negro leader must so deal with the situation as to develop in the segregated group the power with which they can elevate themselves. The differentness of races, moreover, is no evidence of superiority or of inferiority. This merely indicates that each race has certain gifts which the others do not possess. It is by the development of these gifts that every race must justify its right to exist. Woodson calls for true black leadership. Um, not egotistical males who demand leadership positions because they talk loud and holler, um, are to create the environment in which black development can really flourish for the betterment of black children and black adults as well. Woodson further expounds regarding educated blacks when he writes, "This is slightly dangerous ground here, however, for the Negro's mind has been all but perfectly enslaved in that he has been trained to think what is desired of him. The highly educated Negroes do not like to hear anything uttered against this procedure because they make their living in this way, and they feel that they must defend the system. Few miseducated Negroes ever act otherwise, and if they so express themselves, they are easily crushed by the large majority to the contrary so that the procession may move on without interruption. The result then is that the Negroes thus miseducated are of no service to themselves and none to the white man. The white man does not need the Negro's professional, commercial, or industrial assistance. And as a result of the multiplication of mechanical appliances, he no longer needs them in drudgery or menial service. The highly educated Negroes taught, the highly educated Negroes, moreover, do not need the Negro professional or commercial classes because Negroes have been taught that whites can serve them more efficiently in these spheres. Reduced then to teaching and preaching, the Negroes will have no outlet but to go down a blind alley if the sort of education which they are now receiving is to enable them to find the way out of their present difficulties. Woodson's scathing analysis places the educated black in an untenable position. Elevating predominantly white institutions' stature while denigrating black institutions is the hallmark of selling out. Selling out is not pushing a position that the collective disagrees with. Selling out is pushing agendas you know or are too ignorant to know do not have your people's best interest. What has passed as racial cooperation regarding civil rights and integration for Woodson was racial manipulation by placing nominal black figureheads in front to give it legitimacy, which is what we saw with MLK and civil rights. A black figurehead was used to usher in a change in public policy, made it palatable to the masses of blacks, and when it was all said and done, blacks got the least benefit from civil rights and integration. Much of the time, when you're having a back and forth among black intellectuals, they love to use the notion of the system, quote unquote. But this is a ploy, a trick to get blacks to think that there are no institutions within America that are not black owned that can't be used to the benefit of black people. But the real system that needs to be addressed is the educational system that has fractured the psyche of blacks, which Woodson wanted to stamp out during his time. Again, it is no coincidence that the man responsible for Black History Month would write a book of this magnitude because he was a historian. He wanted Black achievement to be brought to the forefront of Black people's consciousness to draw inspiration from it. When your only history is slavery, water hoses, and attack dogs being used against you, lynching, but no institutional development among your own, an implied sense of dependency forms in the consciousness of those who, while criticizing the system, reinforce the very subservient position they claim they are against. Wilson highlights this in his section labeled The High Need for Dependency and Cognitive Style when he writes, "The relative powerlessness of blacks leads to the development of the motive referred to as high need dependency, the strong need to depend on superiors and others who are perceived as having more power. Because of their powerlessness, black parents this is very important. Because of their powerlessness, black parents inadvertently socialize their children to perceive the white group as having the ultimate solution to virtually all their problems. I'm going to say that one more time. Because of their powerlessness, black parents inadvertently socialize their children to perceive the white group as having the ultimate solution to virtually all their problems. To solve problems of any marked significance, blacks have to beseech the white power structure. The white power structure either punishes or at most gives a stamp of approval or disapproval to black originated problem solving behavior. The white power structure has almost absolute control of resources necessary for problem solving by blacks, the way the blacks conceive it at least. Consequently, the black social structure is basically parasitic and dependent. It must await white power movement, approval, or disapproval before it makes any radical or strongly independent changes under its own volition. This condition has paralyzed the black community's ability, desire, and will to become independent, self supporting, self motivating, original, and creative. Under this structure, blacks are not trained for autonomy. In fact, black autonomy is feared and resisted by the white power structure. Black children are socialized under such a regime. These children are therefore socialized to be dependent, to await solutions by outside white super powerful sources, are not socialized for mastery, but for submissiveness.
Now, let me just say something to that before we go ahead and shut this down, because I got to go and grab my kid here from school in just a few minutes. Um, in this fourth industrial age, the notion of the idea. See, racism is a thing that ultimately we'll just never get away from. No matter where you go in the world, there's probably going to be somebody that doesn't like you because of the color of your skin, right? That's not a notion or an idea. But when it comes to more of a new age industrial sort of technological time frame that we're in, that's really not an issue. Okay, anybody can source products or components or have something made in a factory in China. They don't care about your race. They just want to know, are you going to purchase the MOQ, minimum order quantity? Okay, that's all they care about. And so this is kind of like the time we're in, where it's like, okay, you can kind of put racism in its sort of separate social category, and then there's like the new age of business and how things are done, because you don't have to see people face to face, right? All the companies I've sourced, they don't know what I look like. You know what I mean? And it ain't stopping from doing anything. And so I think this is kind of where, in the present time, what we do is we
Complex, yeah?
oh wait, my bad, I accidentally hit mute on this little button.
Okay, okay.
um I'm saying, so what we do is we actually take from these passages that we're reading, and then we contrast them to the time that we're in, and see what it is that we have to do is have the awareness to see the difference in what this environment enables and allows us to do. See, what we're
Mm-hmm,
not supposed to be is stuck in this information feedback loop where you're just
mm-hmm.
literally repeating, talking points of the past. Meanwhile, in real time and in real world, the environment has completely changed.
Right.
Does that mean that racism has been absolved and completely wiped off the face of the planet? Fuck no. 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 It's not what that means. But that also does not mean that you can't engage globally. The two coexist at the same time. Let's just say that.
Well, I think that that's a convenient excuse, and that's why this um this series is so important, because we're going to show that um the shoulders that we stand on, those people never use those excuses to not
Nope.
build for black
No, they
people.
didn't.
If anything, it encouraged them to do so. because their situation was so dire, they had to get stuff cracking. So, you know, when you when you look at what Amos Wilson was able to break down for us, it's right and exact. And some of the things that we see in spaces like this of black male, like there is a there is a very deep lack of self esteem and confidence. And a lot of the pushback that we have found ourselves receiving is based on this miseducation. Now, I said before, man, when we did the Booker T. Washington stream, the series,
Hmm.
this was to show this space. This was not just for the brain trust in that channel. This was to show this
It's for
space of
everyone.
men
Yeah.
why we have had so much issues working with each other. Why has there been so much contention? Because it's in a long tradition of the past 100 years of this particular ideological fight. And we're wasting a lot of time arguing about nonsensical things. There is no, if there is any black males
You mean
in this
shit like
space,
the table?
yes, if there
Yeah.
are any black men in this space who believe that our having our own institutions are unimportant, man,
Just
just go
man,
to space
go,
or something, man.
go.
Because
Yeah, I was about to
like,
say go jump off the planet.
yeah, it's just goofy, man. Because like,
Get up out of here.
you're not fulfilling the role that you're supposed to fulfill in your group. Like, we have to have institutions that represent us. It's just no way to get around that. And this is nothing has changed regarding this. This is why we did the things that we did, the schools we built, the organizations we set up, the farms that we had. I mean, the list goes on, the inventions that we created. Like, we are creative. We are creative. I mean, people were stealing our patents, our patents and our
Hmm.
inventions. Okay,
Yep.
so when you start thinking on that particular level, like we're not coming from the stock of dumb people. And many of these people who created during those times, they didn't have PhDs. They didn't have any of that type of stuff.
Nah, man, that was not a. That was a. It wasn't. Look, man, that whole entire time was reliant upon our ability to make and build things, material things, right? The manufacturing boom, right? The assembly
Mm,
line and all that shit. These are things that, if we circle back this evening, we're going to cover the overall automotive topic, right? To sort of tie into a little bit of this here.
mm-hmm.
That's definitely going to tie into the Booker T stuff, but it's going to tie into this one too. Everybody's going to have to kind of relate all this stuff. But look, let's address this question right here before we dip out, because
That's on you. You got it.
maybe based on this question, man, maybe I'll switch it up and do an Afrofuturism topic tonight. Because Afro SF says, as futurists, do you think that Black people are deliberately socialized to have little interest in futurism and science fiction, which actually allows us to see ourselves in a positive light? Yes. And you kind of which here's what happens. Afro SF, you saw the effect of when Black Panther came out,
Mm-hmm.
right? The whole sort of Afrofuturism motif kind of had a little bit of a commercial impact there for a short time until the brother's death.
Mm-hmm.
Um, However, if you look in the Brain Trust catalog and just look up Black Brain Trust, Afrofuturism, if you type that in, we did some breakdowns of like thought modalities, art, aesthetics, shit like that, right? These are things that kind of give you the notion or the idea to create something futuristic. And when you do that, it materializes in this time, but it has a flavor of future in it. So, and it kind of questions like the true nature of time and how we perceive it and shit like that. But that I think that's a deeper dive. That's more of like the Afrofuturism as a philosophy and how we can extrapolate from like fictional concepts and then bring it into like the third dimensional reality, like and it's and shit, even commercialize it, right? How to engender it and make it a thing, right? And there is
Hmm.
something to it. Um, I don't know if we're socialized to not think that way, but I just think that the socialization has been so steeped in negative shit that a lot of people just really don't have the mind to really pursue it in the way I think you're kind of getting at, and I think I have an idea what you're getting at. So um, let's do this, Ryle. You wanna go ahead, man, give some final thoughts here, and then we'll go ahead and I'll hit you on the phone in a minute, and then let's just kind of like
No, we good.
recap.
We just right on out, man. Right
Yeah,
on out.
okay. Yeah, go ahead. Well, go ahead and put your last words on it, man. I gotta go scoop Shorty up.
Just people just um, don't get mad at us, man. We're gonna say some things, man, that you know is unsettling, but that's what we're here for. We're here to unsettle you, because you got to get uncomfortable with the condition. Like if you're comfortable with the condition, that's a problem.
That's a problem.
So, we're here to unsettle, but at the same time, like we're learning too. Like we're researching, like we're a lot of times, man. Like we spend a lot of time just going through this stuff and
Yeah, just tripping on this
just
shit.
talking about it to
Yep.
each other, and like, dang, like what I'm saying, like when we cover people like George Washington Carver, man, we really
Look,
excited about
I'm telling
covering
you,
this
there's some
brother,
shit I'm
like.
gonna drop on y'all, man. Like it rocked Rael and Sandog's head, rocked my head when I first found out about it, but like it's gonna connect a lot of dots.
Hmm. Yep, yep. Seeing men like George Washington Carver and Booker T come together. Booker T builds Tuskegee. He brings Carver with him. All the things that Carver was able to do with Tuskegee. All the work that he did with Henry Ford that a lot of black people don't know.
That's what I'm
Like,
saying. We about to go there, man. Y'all don't know
just,
like what came out of that stuff, man. It's like it's not spoken about, and it's crazy, dude.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
crazy.
So we just trying to give y'all the information so y'all can take it back, take it to your families. Y'all start talking about it, man, and really start trying to change this dynamic, man, that we have, because this low view of ourselves, is not something that is from a historical record perspective is not the norm.
Mhm.
Like when you see the words of Booker T in his own letters and stuff like that, see his own words, when you see these people talk, you see black people just brimming with confidence, man. Like,
Yep.
which is so surprising. So based on the
Get the
the
circumstances
environments that
of
they were
the
living
time.
in,
Yeah.
so that just lets you know, man,
Makes
like,
you wonder.
like we really more than what we perceive ourselves to be. So that's why
Right.
we just trying to get this information so people can use it as a way to to step up to the plate, man, and face these challenges that we got.
All right. Well, look, man, we're gonna bring a close to Act One on this. This is we got more. We got way more on this. We got way more on this, right? See, so soak this one in. Um, we'll check back in a little bit later on this evening. We got another Black cultural intelligence. This one's going to be overall automotive tech. So, and like I said, we're going to tie in this conversation and the Booker T conversation into that live stream, much like the Automata live stream. If you guys can check that one out, Old World Robots, Black Cultural Intelligence. We're trying to give you guys a picture, a visual picture of what things were like back then and what all this was about because it literally mirrors today. I'm not even playing it. It really does, dude. And the more we break this stuff down, the more, like he was saying, when we be on the phone going back and forth, and he's like going through the books and reading me passages and shit, putting this stuff together, it's cracking our heads open. Like real talk, like we be on the phone, like damn, like what? Bro, am I lying?
No, that's real talk, man. Real, like, I, I'll be the first one to say, like, for me, man, it's just it's a range of emotions that I've gone through. I've gone through anger. I've gone through
Like just
pride,
like you like wow, dude. Like it just
joy,
yeah, you
happiness,
like
you know what I'm
dude,
saying?
were we
Like,
doing this? And, you know,
like man, like it just really gives you something to be proud of because when all you see is either water hoses and dogs put on you people or, you know, pictures of
crack,
lynchings,
crack era,
slavery.
bullshit.
Yeah, it's hard to be inspired by that. But
Yeah,
when you see, and there are schools out here, man, that have like I think Hampton. I think Hampton has a whole visual collection of stuff related to Booker T, man. Like so, we need to really start getting more knowledgeable about our
hmm
HBCUs and the people that have come through there and
yep.
understand the greatness that has come through these places, man, because it's really a lot of unsung heroes that have gone through those halls that we
All
just
your,
really
all
don't know
your,
anything about.
yeah, I'm about to say a lot of your technical black history and stuff like that in terms of people that created things and had an input on companies and things that you may not even know about came through the hallways of those schools of those
Yes,
institutions.
sir. Yes,
You know what
sir.
I'm saying? So we gonna keep hammering this. Like we're not gonna stop. But with that, man, we're gonna go ahead and shut it down, man. I gotta go pick Shorty up from school. Hey, Rod, I'm gonna tap in with you in a minute. Let's do this here. If you guys have not, please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't, share it, share this live stream with some people that you think might be interested in. Shango Zulu, absolutely, bro, no doubt, no doubt. Manuel Briggs, you know it, man. And I agree with Maddox 12. Please hit the like button if you have not. And we'll check you guys out later on this evening. All right, peace out.